I never thought silence could feel so loud until I sat in the backseat of that cab, looking at the woman beside me, and realized she was talking about my husband. Not just a little, completely. She was telling me, without knowing, that the man waiting for her at that beautiful cabin by the lake was my husband, Gregory, and we still had 30 miles to go. That morning, I woke up to sunlight coming through the curtains, feeling excited. Gregory had gone to our Lakewood cabin on Wednesday. He said he needed peace to finish planning his next interior design project. I just need space, Ellie, he had said softly over the phone. You know how noise gets in my head? I had laughed and agreed. Like always, that's the kind of wife I was. Supportive, patient, never asking questions. Friday was a short day at work. As I left, I decided to surprise him. We hadn't had a real weekend together in weeks, and I missed him. I thought of us cooking dinner, watching the lake at sunset, maybe opening that bottle of wine we'd saved. It made me feel alive again. I drove home humming, packed my favorite cardigan, a light dress, and, just in case, the lingerie he gave me last Valentine's Day. Then my car wouldn't start. I tried again and again. Nothing. I sat still, hands tight on the wheel, trying not to scream. Of course this would happen today. I could have waited for the mechanic. I could have gone another day. But I didn't want to waste time. I called a cab. Expensive for the trip. But I thought it would be worth it. The driver, George, was an older man, kind smile, slow voice, soft manners. We had barely gone 10 miles from Charleston when he stopped for someone else. A shared ride. I didn't mind. The more, the merrier. Then she got in. She was stunning, not just beautiful, confident. Red-brown hair in a neat bun, perfect makeup, and she smelled expensive. Her name was Samantha. She smiled at me, and I smiled back, brushing my ponytail, suddenly aware of my faded eyeliner. At first, it was quiet. George played soft music. Samantha looked at her phone. I watched the trees go by, feeling that rare peace of leaving the city. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. I'm meeting someone, she said. It's been a few weeks. He's special. I gave a polite smile, said something vague. She kept going. He's older, talented, an interior designer, actually. She laughed. His mind is amazing. Everything has to be just right for him to work. That's why he goes to this cabin. Says the city blocks his creativity. My body froze. It's our spot, she said, smiling. He's showing me his new project this weekend. Said he has. A surprise. I couldn't speak. My chest tightened. My head felt foggy. Then she said it. Just the name, Gregory. And the world stopped at my husband's name, falling from her mouth like it was hers to say. I turned to the window, pretending to look outside. But inside, I was screaming. I hadn't told her who I was. She didn't know what she had just done. And I didn't stop her, because some part of me, cold and sharp, needed to hear more. And I knew she'd tell me. She didn't notice the change in me, or maybe she thought I was just listening nicely. Either way, she kept talking, and I kept listening. Every word was like a thread pulling apart my marriage. You know what I love about him, she said, twisting her hair. He remembers small things, like I love white roses, and he doesn't just get any. He picks the long stem kind, the fancy ones. White roses, Gregory brought them to me every anniversary. He once said they reminded him of my quiet strength, how I held everything together. I thought it was the kindest thing he ever said. She touched her silver earrings. He gave me these last week, she said proudly. Said they match my eyes. Gregory said the same thing to me, about a different pair. For a second, I almost laughed. Almost. The recycled compliments, the same words, were just so sad. But I didn't laugh, just felt something break inside. Still, I said nothing. She thought my silence meant she could go on. Maybe she just didn't care. We met at a cafe, she said, adjusting in her seat. He was drawing something. I knocked over a sugar jar. Big mess. He helped me clean up and bought me coffee. Just like that, I wanted to scream. I had heard that story before. That woman was me. My hands gripped the seat. George turned up the radio a little. A soft country song filled the car. It would have been peaceful on any other day. Gregory is different, she said. He listens. He tells me how spaces need to breathe, how colors affect mood. It's more than work to him. It's art. I saw how her eyes lit up. She loved him. Fully. Blindly. I couldn't hate her. She believed the same dream I once did. The only difference, I was further down the road. What does he do exactly? I asked at last. My voice sounded strange. He's an interior designer, she said. But he says labels don't matter. He just creates. She laughed. He says the cabin is where his mind works best. He has a studio there. Of course he does. We built it together. I helped pick every piece of wood. But I just nodded. He told me he's married, she said, her tone changing a bit. But it's complicated. He says she's difficult, controlling, always negative. He says he stays because she's emotionally fragile. Emotionally fragile? I had held him during panic attacks. Stayed up with him through deadlines, gave him space when he asked, support when he needed it. I wasn't fragile. I was tired. There's a difference. I looked back out the window. The sky was turning dark. A storm was coming. He's going to leave her, Samantha said, like she wanted my approval. He just wants to do it in a way that won't break her. Break me? I was already broken. I just didn't know it before. She talked about their plans, dinners at the restaurant with the fountain view. That was our place. I had spent my last birthday there. I still had the candle that he brought her there too. I felt sick. My mouth tasted like metal. Still, I said nothing, because something inside me had changed. I was calm, focused. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't even going to tell her who I was. Not yet. Because I needed to see it. I needed to see how it all ended. I don't remember when it stopped feeling like a ride and started feeling like a slow-motion crash. Somewhere between when she said his name and when she mentioned the scar on his arm, I lost all sense of time. He has this scar, Samantha said, smiling softly, right here. She traced her forearm with one perfect finger from a bike accident when he was a kid. He flew over the handlebars and landed in gravel. Had to get stitches. Can you imagine? I had kissed that scar more times than I could count. Gregory told me the same story. How he refused to cry. How he got ice cream afterward. How that scar was a reminder to be careful with what he loved. We used to joke it made him look rugged. I used to touch it absent-mindedly while we watched TV on the couch. And now it belonged to someone else's version of him. I stayed silent because I didn't trust my voice not to tremble. Samantha kept talking. He wants to show me where he grew up, she said. That place shaped how he sees the world. Isn't that romantic? She asked without waiting for an answer. Next month, we're thinking of a trip together. Prague, maybe. He says the architecture there inspires him. Last winter, Gregory told me he might go to Europe for a design show. He said it would be business only and not fun, that I shouldn't bother coming. I remember offering vacation to go with him. He kissed my forehead and said I'd hate it. So, he must have gone with her. All this time, I thought we were drifting. Because of work. Because we were tired. Because we were growing older. No, it was because I had become invisible. The windows blurred with rainy green from passing trees. A storm was coming. Samantha said. He told me his wife can't have kids, which is probably for the best. He says it's sad. But she's emotionally fragile. Kind of unstable, honestly. I think he feels guilty. That's why he's stuck. Gregory and I had been trying to conceive for 2 years. It was exhausting and painful. I cried after every test, every failed doctor's visit, every hopeful pill. But I was never unstable. I was hopeful. And now I knew he had turned that hope into ammunition, used it against me, made me the villain in someone else's story. Samantha touched her lips with a tissue, bright red lipstick, confident, seductive. We're celebrating our 6-month anniversary this weekend, she said brightly. He said he has something planned, maybe even a ring. He asked for my ring size last week. My heart slammed. Gregory asked me my ring size just last month. He said he wanted something special for our anniversary. I thought maybe we were getting better. I was wrong. Then she said something that froze my breath. He says he's finally free with me, able to breathe. I make him feel like a man. Again, my eyes stung. I blinked and fought tears. Breathe. That was our word. He whispered it against my temple when I felt overwhelmed. Now he was whispering it to her. The cab slowed. George leaned forward. Sorry folks, looks like a pile-up ahead. Might be a wait. Perfect. I needed time to collect the pieces of what I just heard. Not for revenge, for clarity. I closed my eyes and let the rain's rhythm guide me. Samantha still talking. Happy, radiant, had no idea what was happening. But soon she would. By the time we reached the turnoff to Lakewood, the rain was fierce. The sky was bruised gray. Windshield wipers stuttered. I sat still, heart pounding louder than thunder. Samantha checked her hair in a mirror. She reapplied lipstick, smoothed her dress. Then she squealed. There he is, she said, pointing. He said he'd wait by the gate. I looked. He was there, Gregory, in the blue flannel shirt I bought him for Christmas, the one that brought out his green eyes. He stood in front of our gate, the gate I painted myself, and he smiled the smile I thought was mine. I shrank into the seat, hoping the fog glass hid me. George pulled over near the curb. Here's me, Samantha chirped. She turned to smile at me. Thanks for the company. Have a lovely weekend. My lips barely moved. You too. She stepped out. Gregory walked toward her like stepping into a dream. I watched, frozen, as he put his arms round her and kissed her, deep and close. I turned away, but I could still hear him say, I missed you, sweetheart. He used to call me that. Something broke, quietly, like a candle going out. George asked, where to next, Mom? My mouth opened, no words. I could leave now. Let this be my last memory of Gregory Whitaker holding another woman on our porch. But I heard Samantha's laugh again, bright and victorious. Something in me shifted. Take me back to the city, I said quietly. George blinked. You sure? It's a long drive in this weather. I nodded. Yes, please. The car drove away. I stared out at the rain-streaked road. But the blur wasn't from the storm. It was from something burning behind my eyes. 3 miles later, I said, stop the car. George asked over his shoulder. Everything all right? No, I said, but I'm going back anyway. He made a U-turn immediately, no questions, just the hum of the engine and rain on the roof. When we reached the house, the gate was slightly open. I paid George double and told him he didn't need to wait. He nodded, left. I stood in the drizzle, staring at the home we built. I could hear laughter inside his voice, her voice, comfortable, familiar. I walked to the porch. My hand hovered above the doorknob. I could storm in, demand answers, but I didn't want drama. I wanted truth. So I smoothed my coat, rang the bell, footsteps, the latch clicked. Gregory opened the door. He looked pale as ash. Eleanor, he whispered, WH, what are you doing here? I smiled calmly. Surprise. I got off work early. Thought I'd spend the weekend with my husband. He blinked. Fear bloomed in his eyes. You never said no. I cut in softly. I didn't. A voice behind him asked, who is it? Samantha appeared. Her face froze when she saw me. She looked at me, then at Gregory, then back. I extended a hand, composed. Hi, I'm Eleanor, Gregory's wife. She didn't shake my hand. She didn't need to. In that moment, everything aligned. The earrings, the roses, the stories, the lies, the truth rose like smoke. Gregory opened his mouth, but no words. I stepped inside. Anyway, it was still my home. And I wasn't done. The house smelled like rosemary and bergamot. The candle I left on the windowsill. It used to feel like home. Now it felt different. Gregory stood frozen. I walked past him, hung my coat on the same hook I installed 3 years ago. Samantha followed. Silent, her heels clicking on the wood floor. The living room was unchanged. The blue throw on the couch. The coffee table I refinished myself. 2 cups of tea, set steaming on it. And a small plate of lemon cookies. My favorite recipe. My stomach turned. So cozy, I said softly, running my fingers along the mantel. Looks like you've made yourselves at home. No one replied. I turned and smelled. Well, I suppose it would be rude of me not to offer my guests something to drink. Gregory opened his mouth, closed it again. Samantha stared at me as if I were a ghost. Sit, I said gently, gesturing to the couch. Please, it's raining. No sense in sending anyone back out right away. They obeyed. I walked into the kitchen. The same kitchen where I'd once spent an entire weekend painting the cabinets pale sage. My hands moved on their own, muscle memory taking over, finding the good mugs, slicing the cheese, ranging the crockery, all the things I used to do when Gregory had clients over. But this time, the performance had a different audience. When I returned, I placed everything on the table with quiet grace. Gregory sat stiff as stone. Samantha's lipstick had faded slightly. Her hands trembled as she reached for her tea. So, I said, taking my seat across from them, how did you two meet? Samantha blinked. I am Cafe, Gregory muttered. Not looking at me. I nodded. The sugar jar story classic. He flinched. Samantha set her cup down too quickly. Tea sloshed over the edge. She didn't notice. I folded my hands neatly in my lap. Do you love him? I asked. Samantha's eyes widened. I thought I did. Do you still? She looked at Gregory, then back at me. I don't know. Silence stretched. Eleanor, Gregory began. But I cut him off with a raised hand. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm not here to scream or beg or ask why. I already know the why. Because you're weak, Gregory. Because you're selfish. Because you wanted something new instead of fixing what you already had. His face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth, then shut again. Smart man for once. I turned to Samantha. You know, he said the exact same things to me. I said softly that he never felt more free, that he could breathe around me, that I made him feel like a man. Her lips parted. She didn't speak. I believed him, too. We sat there like that. 3 people, 1 lie, too many truths. Until finally, I rose to my feet and walked to the fireplace from the mantel. I picked up the silver picture frame. Our wedding photo, me in ivorless, him in a navy suit, both of us laughing. I turned it around and set it face down. I think we're done here, I said. Samantha stood slowly, her eyes downcast. I didn't know. I swear, I believe you, she swallowed. I should go. No, I said, surprising even myself. You'll stay the night. It's late. The roads are slick, and I wouldn't send a stranger out into this storm, even one who kissed my husband. Samantha looked like she might cry. Gregory looked like he already had guest rooms upstairs. Last door on the right. There's fresh towels in the closet. She nodded, murmured a thank you, and disappeared up the stairs. Gregory turned to me, shoulders sagging. Ellie, I held up my hand again. No more. You've said enough. I picked up my cup, took a long sip, and let the silence do the talking. Because in this house, in this moment, I was the one in control. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Not even because I was sad. I lay awake in the guest bedroom, my bedroom, listening to the creaks of the house I had once cherished. The occasional groan of old wood in the wind, the whisper of rain still sliding down the windows, and above it all, silence from the room down the hall. I imagined Samantha cold beneath the covers in what used to be the kids' room. We had painted it soft yellow years ago when we thought we'd fill it with cribs and lullabies. Now it sheltered the woman who almost stole my life away, though really, she didn't even know it. Sometime before dawn, I got up. The house was still. I padded barefoot into the kitchen, started a pot of coffee, and stared at the window while the machine hissed and gurgled. Outside, the sky was turning from black to charcoal, the first hints of morning softening the dark edges of the woods. Footsteps on the stairs made me turn. Samantha stood there, pale, hair loose. Her mascara faintly smudged. She looked like someone who had aged a year overnight. "Can I sit?" she asked, voice. I nodded. She eased into a chair at the kitchen table, her fingers tracing the rim of an empty mug. "I didn't sleep," she said. "Me neither." Silence hung between us. Not hostile, not awkward, just heavy like what will drape over both our shoulders. "How long did you know?" she asked. "Since the taxi." She blinked. "All that time. And you didn't say anything?" I poured coffee into 2 mugs and slid one across her. I needed to see it for myself. She stared at the swirling liquid. "Why didn't you scream? Throw me out." I sat down. "Because I'm tired of screaming. And you didn't betray me." "Samantha." "He did." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "I didn't know. He said you were cruel, controlling, that you'd ruin his life if he left." I gave a dry laugh. "Of course he did. That's what cowards do. They turn the truth into a prison and hand the key to someone else. I feel stupid. You're not. But I believed him." "So did I." She wrapped her hands round the warm mug and stared at her reflection in the coffee. "I thought I was saving someone. Turns out I was just another version of the problem he didn't want to solve." The kettle whistled from the stovetop. I ignored it. "You know what the worst part is," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He never told me about you. Not really. No photos, no stories, just hints, like I was supposed to imagine you as Theveline." I stood and opened the cupboard above her, pulled out a photo album, set it on the table. "Here," I said. "This is the woman he was married to for 5 years. She flipped it open hesitantly. Page after page of memories, Christmases, vacations, the cabin under construction, smiling faces, entangled fingers, the illusion of forever. She paused on a picture of Gregory kissing my cheek on our anniversary. I remembered that day because I had been sick, but still mad at him. Dinner. He told me it was the best meal he'd ever had. She turned the page and stopped. "That's the restaurant," she whispered. "The one with the fountain? Our place," I said, quietly. Tears filled her eyes. She closed the book slowly. "I'm sorry." "I know." A pause. "What will you do now?" "I'll drive you home." She looked surprised. "You didn't have to." "I want to." I went upstairs, changed into jeans and a sweater, and grabbed the car keys from ball near the door. Gregory was still asleep when we left, or pretending to be. I didn't care. We drove in silence for the first few miles. Samantha stared out the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. When we reached the highway, she finally spoke. "Thank you for not hating me." "I don't hate you. Still, you didn't have to be kind." I glanced at her, then back at the road. We were both lied to. That makes us the same kind of woman, just at different stages. She nodded. We didn't say much after that. But something unspoken passed between us in the quiet. Not forgiveness exactly. Something better. Recognition. After I dropped Samantha off, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove around the city aimlessly for nearly an hour. Through neighborhoods I hadn't visited in years, past coffee shops where Gregory and I used to sit on Sunday mornings, past the hospital where we once hoped for answers about why we hadn't gotten pregnant. The streets looked the same, but I didn't. I wasn't the woman who had left for the lake cabin the day before. The woman was gone. When I finally walked through the door of our condo, everything felt quieter than usual, but not in a sad way. More like the calm after a storm that had torn through and cleared out everything false, everything heavy, everything that no longer belonged. Gregory came home the evening. He didn't speak at first, just stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes wide when he saw the suitcase sitting neatly by the bedroom door. "Ellie," he said, his voice cautious. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up from the mug. I was rinsing. There's nothing left to say. "I was stupid," he started. I lost myself." "You didn't lose yourself," I said quietly. "You just chose a version of yourself that didn't include me." "I never stopped loving you." I turned off the faucet. "Don't lie. You might have loved the idea of me, the loyalty, the comfort, but you haven't loved me, not the real me, for a long time. He stepped closer. We can fix this. I shook my head. No. You broke something that doesn't go back together. He looked around, as if trying to find something familiar to hold onto. This place, the cabin, everything we built stays with me. I interrupted. I bought the condo before we married. The cabin deed is in my name. You can take the car. He blinked. You've already decided. I filed this morning. I said, mutual consent. If you don't fight it, will be done in 2 months. He sat down, suddenly, looking old, tired, small. I didn't have a him, but I didn't feel sorry for him either. Gregory was never evil. He was just weak. And I had spent too long loving a man who needed admiration more than honesty. By the end of the week, he was gone. I packed the rest of his things with care. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just quiet decisions. I changed the sheets, repainted the bathroom, got a new plant for the windowsill, and then I went back to the cabin alone. I stood in the middle of that beautiful house I had helped design. Every piece of furniture, every photo, every book on the shelf, and realized I didn't have to burn it all down to reclaim it. I just had to start over. So, I did. I hired a contractor to knock down the wall between the kitchen and the living room. Made the space open, bright. I turned the guest room into an art studio. I didn't know if I was any good at painting, but it didn't matter. For the first time, I was creating something just for me. 3 months passed. One crisp autumn afternoon, I was sitting in a little cafe near the waterfront, sketchbook open, lost in thought, when a familiar voice called my name. I looked up. It was Samantha. She looked different, lighter, confident. Her hair was shorter. She wore less makeup, and next to her sat a man, early 30s, scruffy beard, kind eyes, who looked at her like she was the center of the universe. Eleanor, she smiled. I hope I might see you again. We hugged like old friends. She introduced her boyfriend, Ben, and I introduced myself simply as Ellie. Samantha didn't bring up Gregory. She didn't need to. But as they were about to leave, she turned back and said, "Thank you for everything." I nodded. "You deserve someone who doesn't need to lie to feel loved." She smiled. "So do you?" Later that evening, my phone buzzed. Our number didn't recognize. "Eleanor, it's Henry, Gregory's old friend. We met once at that holiday party." I remembered. He'd always been kind, funny. The kind of man who made you feel like you mattered when he spoke to you. I heard about everything. He said, "I'm sorry, he messed it up." He did. A pause. I was wondering, would you have dinner with me sometime? Just 2 old acquaintances getting reacquainted. I laughed softly. That depends. Are you the kind of man who tells the truth? Always, he said. Even when it's hard. Then, yes. After I hung up, I stood by the window of my condo, my space, my light, my silence, and watched the sky fade from pink to gray. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Not because I had ruined Gregory, but because I had coasted myself. I had let go of the illusion of who we were supposed to be and embraced the reality of who I was becoming, and that I realized was the greatest revenge of all. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment with your country and the current time. Let's see who's listening from the furthest place.